Hey everybody, thank you so much for clicking on this video. Today we are going to do a deep dive into a lot of behind the scenes stuff. I do get questions a lot on my organizational system, so today I'm going to show them to you. I recently went on Instagram, asked you what you wanted to see, what you'd like to know more about. So if you would like to be more involved in the decision-making processes of these videos, make sure you're following me over on Instagram. There's a few big systems I want to break down, and then we're going to answer like some more random questions that I still felt like were relevant at the very end of the video. So let's start with the big one. Fitt Club. We're also going to move my mic here, so it's about to sound a little bit different. Great. So Fitt Club is my monthly membership program where you get access to live virtual classes, on-demand workouts, progressive programs, as well as one-to-one calls with me. And that's a lot of stuff to map out. So I want to show you where I start and then how I kind of zoom out from there. So the first thing I'm going to look at is what are my upcoming programs for the year. This is my master workout tracker. I have a full list of every single workout in the Fitt Club, different ideas, and then at the bottom here you can see a tab for each month. And if there is a new program or an update to a program, which is kind of like my big focus this year, we're going to put it in this bottom tab. Let's look at April because this is a big program. This is going to be an 8-week program that has a different workout pretty much every single day. It's very ambitious and very big. So what I'm going to do from here, I'm going to look at what needs to be filmed over the next few months. A lot of my stuff is already scheduled and done, but I'm going to look at what do I want to be a live class and what do I want to be something that I film on my own time. A lot of that's going to depend on the programming. It's going to depend on how many live classes I actually want to teach that month. But I have found personally that if I have people waiting for me, like actual Fitt Club members waiting for me to teach the live class, it will get done. I don't procrastinate anymore when I have to film on-demand stuff on my own, but it definitely feels it's a lot more of like a talking myself into it kind of situation. So if the format does allow and kind of makes sense for that group fitness type of workout where you're doing it live, I do prefer to try and schedule it live if I can. So again, I've already mapped all of this out, but you can see that I have these scheduled, and these are all on-demand classes. These over here have not been scheduled yet, but I know that I'm going to be doing them live. So let's just take, for instance, because we are actually in a filming week, I try to do the first week of every month as like a big batch filming week. Let's go to my Google Calendar. So again, I've already mapped this out, but tomorrow I'm doing some on-demand filming, and I'm going to be filming 2 different workouts, a strength workout and a power workout. We'll go to the next day, again, a strength workout and a power workout, and then finally, a strength workout, and then some demo videos for the push-up program that is coming out in February or next month. The demo videos are essentially going to be for the gym editions of the programs where you're not following along in like an on-demand style workout. You're going through checklist style, and basically if there's any videos, which I believe, I have not mapped it out yet, but I've mapped out the bulletproof program. And so this is what this will look like. That's a lot. I'm going to have to split that up into like 2 different sessions, but I'll just go through, checklist it off. Now, let's say it's a live workout. So even though I don't know exactly the dates that I'm going to be filming these live classes, I have mapped out at least the weeks they're going to happen in. So I use Asana. I know a lot of people like Notion, a lot of people like other different platforms. I've been using Asana for years and I love it. I have a few different projects based on different things. So this is what my group fitness schedule is going to look like on the back end. But for instance, for those workouts that I'm going to be filming in February, I'm just going to leave them on the side here until I start to map out when the actual live schedule is going to be, which I believe I'm doing this on Friday. But then from there, I can just take it, drag it in, add the time so I know when it's going to happen. So that's the basic structure in terms of figuring out what I'm going to film when. Start small, zoom out. Let's look at an actual part of the program because I know that a few people were curious of like, well, how do you actually like build a program? Obviously, there's a lot to be said about like, education and experience and continuing education and learning from different people. So I'm not going to go into like too much detail, but I do just want to give you a little bit of like behind the scenes of even just how I approach the split of an entire workout program. So like I said, the bulletproof program, it's an 8-week program. It's dropping in April. And we want to start with our why. Like, what's the why of the program? Like, why does it exist? What are we trying to accomplish? This program is all about the ability to move safely and confidently in all directions, all speeds, all tempos, all angles. So to me, that means variety, because life comes with variety, right? Like, we're not always moving quickly, we're not always moving slowly, we're not always moving front to back. So we want to make sure that we're hitting a lot of different bases. The first thing I'm actually going to do is figure out my split. I knew I wanted to do a 3-day strength split in here. And to me, the thing that made the most sense if we're talking about like really having crossover into daily life was 3 full body days. We don't just use our upper body. We don't just use our lower body typically day to day. So I wanted to make sure that, again, that crossover was super strong. There's nothing wrong with a split like that. Again, just for this why and this goal for this program didn't really fit. So then I started to think about, okay, well, what do I want to accomplish in those full body days? If we were doing more of like a hypertrophy based program, I would be thinking more about muscle groups. But because this is more about moving throughout your daily life safely and strongly, we want to think about movement qualities. So I ended up deciding on a strength, power, and endurance split. So strength is obviously like the weight that you can move. Power is going to be more speed strength. We're also going to have different elements of force production versus force absorption. And then endurance is going to be a little bit more aerobically charged and about staying in things for a little bit longer period of time. So when we actually go to build out this program, we have a lot of things already decided for us in terms of sets, reps, focuses, because we already know how to train for strength, we know how to train for power, and we know how to train for endurance. If you're confused about like, oh, how do we know how to do these things? Years of controlled studies. So right off the bat there, that already gives me a lot of guidance in terms of sets and reps. Now I get to start to do the fun thing of filling in the blanks of different movement patterns. So when I'm deciding on specific movement patterns, I might already have an idea in my mind of like, oh, this would get this done really well. So I can start to take notes there. But one of the main things I'm going to do is actually go into my master program list where this shows me the split. It shows me the exact workouts in each program. It's also going to give me an exercise overview. What are the things that I work on consistently during the program and progress throughout the program? So what I'm going to do is actually look at the programs that have strength, power, and endurance, which are nearly all of them. But I want to make sure that I'm not doing like the exact same progression, basically. We're going to talk about this a little bit more when we actually get into like programming for a client, but a lot of times you're not coming up with things like from scratch. A lot of times, like if you are working on an exercise where the progression is not just like adding sets and reps and weight, I'm going to progress it in the same way. So an example of this would be like, let's say we're working on some heavy holds, right? So let's say we're working on like a goblet hold. So week 1, we're gonna do a goblet hold with both feet on the floor. Week 2, we're gonna practice standing with one leg in our goblet hold. Week 3, now we're gonna march it. So we've already done the basics, which is isometrics of holding with 2 feet, holding with 1 foot. Now we're gonna move from 2 to 1 feet. Then week 4, we're gonna increase the speed, where it's a fast march, right? So that's just one example, but like if I program something like that, I already kind of know the progression in my head. So I simply wanna make sure that I'm varying the focuses and progressions across programs. So once I've gone through a few of the other programs, once I have a few ideas of like what I want to focus on, then I can start to put it all on paper, figure out the format, fill in the blanks. So let's go through the first 2 weeks of the power day, because I think this will show you, number 1, how I just kind of set a baseline for the exercises, get people comfortable in it. And then number 2, how am I going to progress it without necessarily just progressing like weights and reps and sets. So we've got 3 main blocks: power, explosive strength, and rotational strength. Now, typically with power work, we're going to see 3 to 5 sets of 1 to 5 reps. This is going to vary a little bit in this program. Number 1, because we're setting a baseline, you're kind of see where we're going with it. And I just want to make sure that people feel comfortable in the movement pattern. So I'm going to give them a higher rep range on day 1 before we add that speed element in. And number 2, I'm not going to make it like a full 100% power day, because you're by the end of your workout, you're not going to be able to really produce optimal power. So it starts as like power, and then we move into like some different elements. But anyway, so in our power block, we're going to start with a depth drop. So this is definitely a skill that I want to progress over the week. And then we're going to go into a lateral bound. We are going to keep the reps at the higher range of power, because I do want people to get enough time getting comfortable in it. Again, it's week 1. We're setting the baseline. We're not really concerned about producing optimal amounts of power quite yet. Progressing this in week 2, I'm simply going to add some height. So in week 1, I'm probably going to tell people like 8, 9, 10 inches, like very low, just get used to it, make sure you're good. And then adding a little bit more of like a moderate height. And then we're going to load our lateral bound. The reason for this, without skipping too far ahead, is because I'm not actually really focused on the lateral bound as like the end goal. I'm trying to work on lateral skill work. So lateral swings, lateral cleans, lateral snatches. So I'm trying to get really quickly, okay, do we feel comfortable moving on that frontal or side to side plane with weight? So that's why we're moving right into that. For our explosive strength, we're gonna start with Bulgarians, 3 sets of 10 each side. And again, you're probably like, that's not power. You're right. We'll talk about that in a second. We're setting a baseline. And then we're gonna pair that with a single arm jerk. Then week 2, we're gonna work on some eccentric Bulgarians, meaning we're going down for 3, pausing, up explode 1. That's our explosive strength. We're gonna do 3 sets of 6 on each side. So technically like a little bit above that power realm. But again, I'm also thinking of the people that I work with, and I want to give people enough time to get comfortable in the movement, or enough reps. And then week 2 with our single arm jerk, we're simply adding load. We're going to keep the reps the same. Again, I'm assuming this whole week 1 is like, let's just get it in our body. And then finally, we're going to work on some rotational strength. So we're going to do a half kneeling single arm rotational lat pull down. So like as you row, you're rotating into it. So we're getting that trunk rotation. And then we're going to do a lateral squat, which I realize is not rotational, but we are moving in that frontal plane. I don't know, it's just called that chunk. So week 2 with this, we're going to keep the reps the same, 3 sets of 8. Again, we're not super concerned with power at this part of the workout. We're working a little bit more in that hypertrophy zone. So we're going to progress this from half kneeling to seated. So now you're going to have to use a lot more of your core to stabilize and get the weight down. And then our progression for the lateral squat is going to be moving it into a lateral lunge. So a lateral squat is static, lateral lunge, you're stepping. So that's going to be a progression right there. And then again, this is 8 weeks. So basically I kind of know at week 1, where do I want to end? So I guess that would be helpful to look at too. So like where we're ending with, let's say this depth drop, is that we're doing a depth drop into a single leg box jump. Yeah. You missed a lot of steps getting into that, right? Same thing, we're working up to a lateral snatch. We're working up to catch Bulgarians, where you drop and you kind of let your hands release the weight and you catch it. We're working up to a double split jerk, a weight on each side. We're ending with split stance. We're working up to a seesaw press, standing position, heavy load, rotating. We're working up to a lateral clean into a curtsy lunge. So like this is why we're starting with these baselines, so we have somewhere to progress up to. And the fun thing about this program, because you do get a different workout every single day of every single week, except the mobility one. You get a lot of variations, a lot of progressions, because again, what's the why? We want variety. But just because we want variety doesn't mean that we want it to be random. Like we want the variety to be building. So that was the Fit Club. Let's look at social media. Again, I'm going to use Asana for this, and I always start with YouTube. I do consider YouTube my main platform, so I'm gonna, again, kind of build everything out from there. So my Asana page for this looks a little bit different because I like to use boards. So I'll typically be utilizing 4 boards at a time. This is my completed. Every single YouTube video I've ever made is in here. This is my January schedule, February as I'm mapping it out right now, and then these are just content ideas over on the side. So essentially when I'm done with something, I check it off, I drag it over to the completed tab. The other nice thing about this is that you can look at the calendar view and you can get a little bit more of like a bird's eye view of what's going on. Now there's a few staples that I try and hit every single month. This month was a little weird with like the holidays and Vlogmas, but I'm always going to upload, which was today, I'm always gonna upload a free workout the day that a new program drops. So today I had the Back to Basics and the 4-week Essentials program kind of relaunched, and I had a few new workouts in there. So I uploaded a cardio workout to promote that. What I always try and do the week after, or like the upload after, is upload the TikTok roundup, because to be frank, that video always like 100% across the board does really, really, really well, like performs really well. And whenever I upload a workout, just because my channel is not a workout channel, it doesn't do super well. So the algorithm, like I just don't want it to plummet for too long. I try and give it a little boost. That obviously didn't happen this month, just things got kind of messed up with Vlogmas, but that's what I typically do. So ideally this TikTok video would have gone on Wednesday, but here we are. Those are really the only 2 things that are set in stone. So then I'm just gonna kind of go through and fill in the blanks. What I typically try and do on my Wednesday upload is upload something that's a little bit more educational. And then on Saturdays, upload something that's either like a little bit more fun, a little bit more vloggy, or maybe a little bit more random. I do really like this bird's eye view because then I can kind of look and see like, okay, what's more searchable? Like what would people be Googling, right? So that's more like evergreen content. Or do I have some things that I know are kind of clickbaity or gonna perform well? So obviously the TikTok roundup, and then just more of the fun stuff for my soul. I would say, even though this is very highly requested, it's not going to perform well. That's okay though, because I really like all of the nitty gritty back end stuff and like watching that from other creators. So this is like a for my soul and hopefully for some of your souls video. Then I'm going to open this in a new tab. We're going to go over to Instagram. So the first thing I'm going to do with Instagram is actually just fill in all of my YouTube videos, because a lot of times I can just kind of cross post. Like you'll notice I'll like edit it in vertical format, like Instagram format, and then put something over on Instagram. Or maybe I'll make like a carousel or just something that cross posts and cross promotes the YouTube video. Then starting to fill in the blanks on Fridays, I always do, I call it Functional Friday, but it's basically just like some sort of form check video. And then I open up my stories to questions and I answer your one-to-one questions. Again, another reason to follow me over there. And then I'll just kind of fill in the blanks on other days of random ideas that I have, maybe like a trending sound on TikTok, or if there's a question from the Functional Fridays that I feel like would be great as a post, I'll actually take that and make a full post about it. There's also going to be some like staples. So like at the beginning of the month, we saw right here, I put my January schedule. Oh, and I'll put like the whole caption in here and map it out, so that when it comes time to post, I just like copy and paste it. Today, again, like I said, we had those 2 new programs relaunch. So I've got that scheduled in here. So I do kind of know going down like, okay, on February 2nd, I'm gonna post the full February schedule. The push-up program relaunches, so I'm gonna push that. And then I have a TikTok board here, but I quite literally, don't use it. I have no strategy on TikTok, and I don't know, by the time this comes out, it might even be banned. So there's that. Let's look at personal training. So for my personal training, I do one-on-one training. That one-on-one training either happens virtually, so on Zoom, or in person. I do still book my clients through there using Wix. They literally can just, let's say they're a virtual client, book here, click on the day, here's what's available, it comes right out of their plan. Easy. I don't want to show you client names, so let's go to an empty week, but essentially on the back end of Wix, I just have my entire schedule mapped out, so anything that's not gray, this is available for clients to book. And yeah, I just kind of give people free reign over my schedule. That might sound kind of crazy. Oh, it's snowing. Yay. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. That might sound really crazy. Like I know people do like consistent time slots with people each week. I just find that for me, it kind of makes my weeks a little bit more like fun to have a different day every day. But also, I really like giving my clients that flexibility. I work with nurses, I work with other coaches, I work with people who don't work traditional 9 to 5s. I like to give that flexibility to people because I know that with my schedule, I would really appreciate that too. So it works for me, it works for them. We're keeping it. Now, in terms of programming for clients, I already kind of talked a little bit about like, yes, every single client does get their own unique program, but in terms of progressing certain things, a lot of times I have an idea of like how I'm going to do that. So it's not like I'm sitting here coming up with new progressions and new exercises from scratch every single week. That would be unsustainable. So we're gonna look at one client's program. We meet twice a week in person, and I just kind of want to talk you through like some of her progressions and where my brain is at. I do program everybody typically on Thursday and Friday. I try and break it up into 2 sittings so my brain isn't like totally fried, but I will map out like if you were in a new training block. Let's rewind. So for each client, I typically work in 4-week block. I just find for general population, it keeps it interesting, it keeps it fun, it gives you plenty of time still to progress different things. And so that's why we do that. And I will sit down, like let's say we're at the start of a new block, I will map out the whole 4 weeks in one sitting. Not only does that give me a better picture of where we're trying to get to, and it tends to help me program a lot smarter, it also makes my workload the weeks after a lot lighter on those Thursdays and Fridays. Because really all I have to do is do micro adjustments as I go. So this client, again, has a 2-day split. On her pull day, our big goals right now are back gains. We've been working on pull-ups for the last 8 weeks. She does not have one unassisted yet. We've been working on them for 8 weeks, and I'm like, let's take a breather. Working on like eccentrics and banded pull-ups can be really, really exhausting. So I'm like, let's just go back to like our lat pull downs, our inverted rows, like working on our back strength from all different angles. We'll come back to the pull-up. So back gains to support that goal, hamstring strength, and space in her glute. She gets a little bit limited in like her posterior hip capsule, like in that space. So really choosing exercises and movement prep that help to support that. On our second day, we're working on our push-ups, just working in general on like lower body gains, building that booty, and then just like fun upper accessory work. So we're gonna start with like a relative strength and speed section. We're gonna do some inverted rows and some plate hops, so little hops front and back. We're gonna set our baseline here with as many reps as possible. And then over the weeks, I'm probably not gonna keep this as AMRAP. I'm gonna get more specific, but I just kind of copy and pasted since I don't know where her baseline is. So again, that's where my like upcoming Friday work happens. Plate hops, we're gonna do bilateral, then to single leg. We're gonna do single leg again because I know she's gonna have trouble with it. And then we're gonna alternate our single leg plate hop. So a little bit more coordination. We're gonna do a lower body stability tricep. We're gonna work on some kickstand deadlifts, some side plank clams, and some hamstring curls. So again, this is gonna work on that glute space. This is really like a pelvic stability exercise, but we're also gonna really work on those glutes. So that's gonna target a little bit more of the side glute. And then hamstring curls, that's gonna work on our hamstrings. Honestly, progressing this guy, kickstand deadlift is gonna be a little bit more traditional, like let's just keep going up in weight. For the side plank, we're gonna work on moving it after we hold it. We're gonna work on a longer lever. Then again, we're gonna move through that longer lever. Hamstring curls, we've done these before, and I know on the stability ball, she gets a little unstable. So we're just gonna start by focusing on adding reps, and then finally on the last week, we'll see how some single leg works. I made a note here, we might wanna do like 1 out, 2 in. So like one leg goes out, you catch it with the second foot, bring it back in. So kind of like eccentrics. And then finally, we're gonna look at our upper body strength, and this is gonna be like super, super stable. This is for our back gains. Lat pull downs, face pulls. We're working more lat, we're working more rhomboids, mid and low traps. And with this guy, super traditional, add weight, add reps, just strict hypertrophy. And to be honest, that was a lot, and I don't really feel like taking you through the push day, so we're gonna end that there. Let's get into some of the miscellaneous questions that I do feel like still suit this video. I got asked a lot about like equipment and filming and editing software. I made a video years ago that some of that information might still be updated, so you can check that guy out. I also do try to keep my Amazon storefront like fairly updated. I'm not gonna lie, I'm so bad at it though. So let's chat really quickly. This camera right here, which is my bread and butter, this is the Sony FX30. I have a wider lens on it. I typically like a wider lens. I just like the look of it in the space, but also when I'm filming my workouts, I just need a wider lens to make this room look bigger. Then I have this little guy. This is the Sony ZV-1 Mark II. Little vlog camera. Hi. As you. But the reason that I got it is because you can film in 4K. So I use this as not only a second angle in all of my workouts, but I actually filmed pretty much all of Vlogmas on there, and the quality is beautiful. For my microphone, this is the Rode Wireless Go. I use these Lacy hard drives to do all of my editing on. Every single video, all of my stock footage lives on these. Typically one of these, I get like the big ones, like the 4 or 5 terabytes, but it'll last me for like a year and a half. And I also do all of my editing on there, meaning, so I use Final Cut Pro, but my libraries are not stored on my laptop because it would immediately run out of space. So I store everything, all of my editing stuff on my hard drive. Another question, I'm amazed at your self-discipline. How do you bounce back after falling behind? Honestly, I've built buffers into my systems. I can't remember if I mentioned already, but I did make a whole video like about motivation, which was really just a video about discipline and like this different systems that I set in place for myself. I give myself a buffer. So I know I mentioned this quickly, but what I've been trying out, and I'm still not sure if I really like it, but we're gonna spend a little bit more time flushing out this system. What I've been trying to do is the first week of the month, get all of my filming done. So that's on-demand workouts that I'm not filming live, and YouTube filming. And then if I can, sprinkling in some Instagram short form content stuff. Week 2 is editing for YouTube. So I try to edit all of my YouTube videos in that second week. Week 3 is editing for the Fitt Club. So anything that I just kind of have in like my raw footage folder, I try and clear that out and get it edited. So then week 4 is always a buffer week. So let's say I got sick. Let's say I had a vacation. Let's say I was just fucking lazy. I have that buffer week where I can kind of catch up. Or if I just didn't get something done, I can fill in the blanks. Like I will say typically the TikTok roundup has to happen in that week because I want to make sure that I'm not filming it like over a month in advance. I want to make sure it's a little more relevant. So that's typically happening in that last week. Now for the Fitt Club, I'm usually filming stuff 2 to 3 months in advance. And you can see that right here. Like we already went through the April bulletproof program. It is January and I'm filming content for April right now. Again, it just gives me a better buffer. It takes some of the work off of my plate long term. But honestly, like the other part of this, like yes, I do have a lot of discipline. I would say like that is just a quality about me, but I also really like what I do. So I try and build my systems according to that balance of like discipline, liking what I do, needing the rest. So it takes a lot of trial and error. And once again, I don't even know if I like the system that I'm trying right now. I started implementing it like right before the holidays and there was a lot of weird break time. So I didn't, yeah, we're going to see. I'm going to give it to the summer and see if I like this system. So people want to know about work-life balance as well. Honestly, I probably don't do this very well. But again, some of that is because I genuinely really love what I do. You know, pre-COVID, I worked for like 3 or 4 different studios and had my own personal training clients. And even when I was working for other people, I still hustled. Like I was putting out social media content to promote my classes. I was putting in the back end work. I was trying to get people in there. So I was still hustling. But now the difference is I hustle and I reap 100% of the benefits, right? Because that's the main thing that people talk about is like, oh, well, you know, if you are just employed by someone else, really all you have to do is like show up, do your job, go home. You don't have to think about it. I am just not built like that. So this works better for me. But one of the things that I have put in place for a little more balance is weekends off. I will typically work one weekend out of the month, whether it's a live class, whether it's doing drop-in training, whether it's doing drop-in mobility assessments, simply because I realize that with my clients and my reach, that time slot works for a lot of people. So I want to try and get that in there once a month. And again, I really try and get all of my work done during the week. So Saturday and Sunday, I don't have to think about it. I don't have the Sunday scaries and I can just relax. I also, in terms of that balance, try to map out when my breaks and when my vacations are going to be throughout the year. So it's January right now. My next big break is going to be in April. I'm actually taking my sister on a vacation. We're going to Bermuda. But it's like a very late, like extra congratulations for her graduating from nursing school, which was like 2 years ago now. Hopefully for me, it's a congratulations for passing my CSCS exam in February, but it's also right between our birthdays. So it's also like a little birthday trip. In May, I'm not going on a vacation, but I am doing a retreat. End of July, early August, I'm going on vacation with my family and I already mapped out a little bit of buffer time at the end. So I also can just like chill and get my life together. And then at the end of December, I'm going to take a little holiday break for myself. So mapping out when those breaks are going to happen, not only like gives me a better idea of all of my scheduling, but it also just like gives me set in stone, like here's where you will rest. You will rest during this time. Again, just trying to build that work-life balance a little bit better. Okay, and then finally, long-term versus short-term to-dos. Let's look at this real quick. Okay, so I live and breathe by my Google Calendar, which you've already seen, but I also use the little daily to-do on the side of my Gmail account. So I just go through and I'll do this like the night before. I'll map out any to-dos that I have to get done. There are some things that are like recurring to-dos. So for example, like this happens every Friday. So when I'm done with this, instead of checking it off, this is my remember to like program, put in my in-person notes, update if I need 4 weeks. What I'll do when I'm done this is actually take it, just move it to the next week and drag it down. And then I do have a long-term version of this, and this is just like long-term shit that I've written down at some point. So if I ever have like extra time during the day, I might sit down and be like, oh, what's something that I can check off this long-term to-do list? The only other thing that I'll show you guys that I think is interesting. So this is my growth tracker. I update this on the last day of every month, but essentially you're gonna see how many subscribers I have from YouTube, what's my growth from the previous month, and I'll make a note of like what my top post is, because that gives me an idea of like, oh, what's working well. Same thing with Instagram. This is Fitt Club numbers. So, oh, this should say monthly. Monthly, how many did I grow from last month, yearly growth, and then total Fitt Club members. This is where I just like to put what I paid in like my estimated quarterly taxes. And then this is just all of my money. So where all of my money lives, because I've talked about this before, I, for a really long time, was so anxious about money. Like looking at it every day, managing my finances, it gives me a lot more control and like less anxiety over it. So I actually just like to add everything up. I understand that like with some of this, like, you know, it's funds that are in the stock market and it's going to go up and down and fluctuate. I don't care about that. I care about just like understanding where my money is because it's in many places now. And that's the video. So hopefully that was helpful or interesting. I know that a lot of these systems, like I've stolen from other people when I first started trying to build these systems out myself, looking at other people who have built systems for themselves, take what works, finesse what needs to work better for you, and go from there. If you have any questions about building out a system for yourself, let me know down in the comments below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out, and I will see you all in the next one. I don't know why I'm saluting, but goodbye.